I'm speaking to you about the power of generosity, and that's a subject that involves a lot of inner transformation, so it doesn't lend itself well to a PowerPoint presentation. In my real life, my real job is in the field of philanthropy, and philanthropy is not about money. The spirit of compassion and generosity lives within each of us, yet the perception of philanthropy has been that of a luxury sport, open only to those who write big checks. But no matter what we have or what we don't have, we can give all of who we are, all of ourselves, because generosity is an expression of our love for humanity, and this is really what philanthropy is all about. My journey began in the Philippines, where the word philanthropy was not a part of my vocabulary. I grew up in Catholic convent schools where giving meant putting something in the collection basket in church on Sunday Mass. And when I left the Philippines to marry New Jersey sales entrepreneur Berrie, whose success with teddy bears and trolls fueled our philanthropy, I entered a whole different world. For someone from a Catholic background of anonymous giving, it was a culture shock to be honored so publicly at fundraisers and to have our name appear on buildings and to watch people stand up and pledge enormous amounts of money publicly. And it was only later that I learned to appreciate the importance of speaking about giving, my giving and the role of philanthropy in changing the world. The British honorary ambassador for philanthropy, Dame Stephanie Shirley, said that if I don't talk about how and why I give, how can I get anyone else involved? A society needs models, strong models to display personal vision and leadership. Leading this culture shift to create a values-driven society with compassion at its core means that we have to be more vocal about speaking up about compassion and learning how to create a culture of generosity. Philanthropy is the gift of who we are. The essence of giving comes from what we're most passionate about and how we can give of our deepest self. Giving from that deepest self inspired Lisa Nigro, a police officer patrolling the 15th district of Chicago's crime-ridden neighborhood, to haul a nephew's little red wagon filled with coffee, bagels, and sandwiches. Feeding the homeless led her to start what's called the Inspiration Cafe. It's a restaurant where homeless people can sit like guests and order what they want without paying. She used $30,000 of her life savings and credit cards that took 10 years to pay off. And today, the Inspiration Cafe has grown into 4 restaurants with a service training program that puts homeless people back to work. And in my work as the president of the Russell Berrie Foundation, I've had the privilege of meeting unsung heroes like her who offer the most priceless gift of all, and that's the gift of self. Celebrating the power of one to make a difference led our foundation to create the Raspberry Prize for Making a Difference, because my husband felt that media always reports bad news, but no one really cares to spread the word about the good things that people do. And we wanted to change the culture and image of New Jersey by recognizing everyday heroes in our midst. One of the winners was a woman in Atlantic City who managed to feed thousands of homeless people while living on her own welfare checks. She used her $50,000 prize money to buy sneakers for them and put off heart surgery until she could find someone to do the cooking. And after 17 years, the network of ordinary citizens doing extraordinary acts of kindness created a ripple effect as they collaborated with each other, identified other unsung heroes, and expanded their collective impact. Almost 20 years ago, our foundation invested in an outstanding child neurologist, Dr. Arnold Gold, who started a Humanism in Medicine program that's now in almost all the medical schools in the country and has spread to other medical schools abroad. And most people didn't understand why we would fund something that people did not die from. But as one of last night's Compassion Week awardees said, medicine can cure, but humanity can heal. And the spirit of humanism was the guiding force behind the Naomi Berrie Diabetes Center that we established at Columbia. To embed humanism in the culture of the Diabetes Center, we offered free parking to patients. And in New York, free parking is a radical act of compassion. We wanted the first patient encounter to be a positive experience. We filled the lobby with toys to make the kids smile because we want them to associate the hospital with, not with trauma, but with caring. There are computers for parents to check into work while waiting, and doctors had a private stash of trolls to give to newly diagnosed kids. We produced a special teddy bear designed by a mother of a diabetic child that had Velcro patches for patients to practice injecting themselves with insulin. And of course, now you don't need an injection. You can actually use other new devices. But we brought in all related specialists to integrate diabetic care under one roof: the eye doctor, the dentist, the nutritionist, the podiatrist, a nurse educator, so patients would not need to lose time from work to get attention they need by going from one building to the next. Researchers and their genetic mice are in the same building, so they encounter patients every day as they go up and down the elevator, and they feel that sense of urgency in finding a cure. Kids can tour the medical labs to visit the mice, and older kids apprentice at the lab. It's a holistic environment that has become a model for patient-centered care. Philanthropy is a gift. It's a gift of power, the power of one to make a difference regardless of our means. And it's a blessing that comes with a charge to be a disruptive force for good. How we give and channel the gift of our life to connect to purpose, to our purpose, is the soulful journey that a fellow philanthropist described as money dancing with God. The highest purpose of philanthropy is based on a profound and almost immeasurable concept of love for humanity that does not depend on money, but on the yearning to be part of some greater good. Expressing our kinship and oneness with humanity is the stuff that real heroes of compassion are made of. How do we act from this empathic connection to stay awake in a world filled with deep and complex conflicts? How can we create a personal platform for compassion with my being, my essence, my stand as the source of taking authentic action? How do leaders express empathy authentically? The desire to see change occur, the discovery of our philanthropic voice, and the courage to act rises from our bravest and most authentic self. And when Rick Ramish, Colorado's new chief of corrections, asked to spend time in solitary confinement, he wanted to ignite a larger conversation about the use of solitary confinement as punishment in prisons. Acting from his bravest and most authentic self, his experiential immersion set a level of integrity and trust that mirrors the change he wanted to be. Immersive empathy is an inspiring innovation that breaks through the wall of apathy and allows a glimpse of what it's really like to walk in the shoes of the radical other. Who are you being while you're doing what you're doing? My rabbi asks this question on Rosh Hashanah to remind us of the power of intention. The smallest acts done with the right intention contain sacred power because it has the potential to change the lens through which we encounter humanity. Through our actions, we have the power to create miracles, and in this sense, anyone can be a philanthropist. Our role as leaders comes with an obligation to ask ourselves, how can we use our life to create a better, more compassionate world? Giving starts with listening, trying to understand where the problem really is. Just because we're writing the check does not mean we know all the answers. Learning from people whom we want to help can only happen when we master this deep listening skill, because listening and leadership are interconnected skills. Leadership requires a capacity to listen with an inner ear, to unlock the full potential of philanthropy to enable change. This particular listening brings a quality of attention, awareness, and intentionality to our giving. And when we can be there richly, deeply for each other, in the spirit of a compassionate listener, we expand our awareness and mindfulness. And from a place of deep inquiry and open-hearted listening, we're transformed by what we hear to act from a larger whole. Listening too deeply can have unintended consequences. In a radical act of compassion, I found myself giving a talking parrot funding to cover its veterinary bills after getting bitten by another parrot. This was no ordinary parrot. His name was Nkisi. He's an African gray parrot. He's now my friend, and he sends me recorded greetings, having mastered 1,700 words and how to use them in context. Nkisi would greet anthropologist Jane Goodall with, "Where's your chimp?" and said, "I don't want to die," while it was recovering from its wound. Exploring the inner terrain of the animal mind and discovering the boundless limits of connection between beings of all species makes philanthropy a journey of discovery and inspiration. Philanthropists are pioneers, explorers, and visionaries imagining possibilities beyond known boundaries. Scott McVeigh, who was the founding director of the Dodge Foundation, taught me that a new idea typically does not, at the beginning, fit the guidelines. Yet, that is where the strategic possibilities lie. One of these imaginative possibilities happened after meeting jazz musician Paul Winter, who produces the Winter Solstice Concert at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York. Paul expresses his spirituality in music and the love of nature. He created the soundtrack for Flyways, a documentary celebrating the bird migration from Africa through the Middle East to Eurasia. Storks, steppe eagles, pelicans, and other birds flying through shared airspace brought Palestinians and Israelis together to protect aerial pathways beneath which they struggle to coexist. And inspired by the possibilities these migrating birds offered for peaceful cooperation, Paul gathered musicians from all the countries around the world where the birds had flyways, each playing indigenous musical instruments unique to their part of the world. And so this film expresses beyond words what we're all striving for. We are all one people, governed by the same sacred awe, bound together by the same destiny. And returning from a walking pilgrimage through Spain, along the way of St. James, known as the Camino, inspired me to see life as a pilgrimage. Walking for days created an inner space from which to experience the wheel of awareness that Dan Siegel calls, and plug into the spiritual hub to renew a sense of giftedness and a conscious appreciation for the awesome task of repairing the world. Somewhere along the compassion journey, we encounter ourselves as we encounter humanity. And this inner transformation is a gift we gain by cultivating a spirit of generosity. Playing a transformative role in the world requires us to know who we are and bring all of who we are to where we're going. Generosity nurtures those who give and those who receive. There's a Hebrew word, natan, which is a mirror word because spelled the same backwards and forwards. It contains dual meanings, to give and to receive in the same word. And bringing all of who we are to how we give is a gift that anyone can share. We can all do small things with great love, as Mother Teresa said. And now is the time to make a commitment to be a real hero of compassion with whatever we have, in whatever way we can. Every day we can tap into the heart of oneness by choosing to do one small thing for someone else. And every act of generosity creates a ripple effect that transforms first ourselves, then other beings, our planet, our world, and this whole integrated system in the web of life. So don't wait to make your first million to be a philanthropist. Start living a life of generosity now. And I invite you to begin with an act of compassion before the conference ends and to go out and spread the word.